Welcome to Excitement Cubed here on ARG this week. I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who, if he was a console, would simply be referred to as the Game Orb, the BRENT.
What up, G?
Oh my God. Hideous. Hideous. You are not a DJ. Ravi Abbott, you are not. No, put that down. No turntable for you. Take off one of those two hats. Thank you. Good God Almighty. So, if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel and we made the deal. And this week, we are taking a brief respite from our European Classic Computer Tour to bring to you something more mainstream. Brent, it's the Nintendo GameCube.
Yes. This is a console I grew up with.
You grew up with the GameCube?
Absolutely. Didn't own one, but I grew up with one.
You didn't own a GameCube?
No.
I thought you did.
Nope.
No, then how did you grow up with it?
I had many friends that had GameCubes.
No, I see.
In fact, the GameCube is home of one of my top 10 favorite games of all time.
Oh, yeah? Are we going to hear about this now or later?
No.
Is it today's game?
No. It is not. Eternal Darkness is an absolute horror classic for the console generation.
Never heard of it.
Oh, well, see, now I feel bad because you were literally missing out on one of the greatest games of all time.
Hey, listen, pal. This was Bizarro Week.
Yeah, I know.
On the GameCube.
That's
so
why
you could have chose anything you wanted for me, but you chose what you chose. And I chose what I chose.
It's true.
So before we get into our chosen games, let's learn a little something about the GameCube.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I do own one of these, which I left in the house. I meant to bring it out here, so there you go. Mine's blue with a gimmick on the bottom. So, the Nintendo GameCube, Codenamed Dolphin.
Yes.
They probably made the right call there. I don't know if I'd have went with the Dolphin. Released in Japan September 14, 2001. We got North American release November 18, 2001. And the Europe got it May 3rd, 2002. Once again, bringing up the rear. Australia, May 17, 2002. So the Australia got this 7 or 8 months after it was released back in the day. Now, you know I love to do this, and so I'm going to ask you now.
All right.
How many of these things do you think sold worldwide?
Well, I know for Nintendo, this was a lower selling console, but it still sold a respectable. I'm going to say 8 million.
You suck. You're horrible at these. 8 million?
Yeah.
No, wrong.
Oh, worldwide?
I said worldwide, and you're
All
wrong
right.
in the U.S. too.
I'll say 14 then.
No, wrong.
How?
Worldwide, 21.75 million.
Well, how many
units
in the US?
were sold in the U.S. Just under 13 million.
Wow. So
yeah.
Over half in the U.S.
Oh
alone.
yeah, and they sold 4 million in Japan. So, and in other regions, got the rest. So that, by Nintendo standards, this was considered sort of a dud.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and it's fun. The funny thing about this is, here comes Nintendo's sort of first foray into the disc era, right? I mean, This was their first game that had disc media, and they had to Nintendo it up and used the little mini discs for this one. Now, those mini discs could hold they could store way more than the cartridges of the N64 could.
Oh, absolutely.
But of course, you've got a single-use game machine here. It couldn't play DVDs like your Xbox or your PlayStation.
Yep.
And that probably
PS2 at this point.
That probably cost them.
Absolutely.
To a certain degree.
They're because the mini disc were in part an anti-piracy thing.
Right.
And I mean the GameCube remained uncracked for many years.
It's funny, just a few. I don't know when they cracked it, but just a few months ago, I heard that there was a chip out that you could put in it, and believe it or not, you can still buy these mini discs, and you can burn them, and you could put. But I mean, it seems sort of silly, which I'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about what's in this weird little box. First of all, let's talk about the aesthetics. The actual unit itself is
it's a lunchbox.
It's goofy looking.
It's a lunchbox.
It is a cube.
Cube with a handle.
With a handle.
I hate it.
Now
I've never liked the looks
top
of
it pops open for the disc, and then you've got the ports along the front, 4 ports I recall. And then my particular unit has a gimmick shoved under that lets you play Game Boy Advance.
Well, that
games.
comes off.
Right. But I mean, there's a spot there to put an add-on. Is I guess what I'm saying.
An expansion port on the bottom.
Yeah. And it's a light unit.
Oh yeah,
it's very compact. I mean, I actually like I like a tiny little unit like that. I think that's not
I'm
too
okay
bad.
with all. I have nothing against the size. I just don't. I don't like the handle because it sticks out the back. I think it makes it awkward to put in the shelves. If that handle was detachable, I would be a lot better off with it. But as it is, I don't like it. I don't like it.
They could have put a couple gimmicks on the side with the handle, like a pail would have, or
well, no, that would have been absolutely.
What? That's
the worst idea.
You don't like my pail idea?
No. The game pail.
You know what bugs me? It's a shame that this thing didn't take cartridges, because then you could have doubled up the handle action and had Odyssey 2 like cartridges to go in it with a little handle on them. No. You double it up. Everything's a handle. So what makes this thing tick? Well, this thing is stacked with a PowerPC based core, with a 435 megahertz IBM Gecko PowerPC CPU. I'm not familiar with the Gecko.
I'm not familiar with the Gecko line of processors.
So I'm guessing this is a pretty big deal. This thing, like I said, came with 4 joystick ports.
Yes, great idea. Great decision.
Although not at that point unusual, because the Xbox had already had 4.
Well, yeah.
So it's not. It's not like no one had ever done it before.
No. The N64 I think was the first one to do it in the console land, but it was good that the GameCube also did it.
This thing came with a weird total 43 megabytes of total non-unified RAM, slightly more than what I just put in the old Amiga. But what are you gonna do? I'm working my way up to 43 megs. So you've got this thing pretty much was standard fare for the time. I'm trying to think. This thing took has your classic Nintendo breakout board in the back for the AV, so nothing special there. No. I kind of like when they've got that stuff built in. I'd rather have that than the cabling, but that's just,
sure.
That's just because I'm lazy, I guess. So the disc, and it says we mentioned, it won't actually do anything. It's basically a Matsushita CAV Mini DVD 8cm optical disc. All right, guess how much these things hold?
About a gig, right?
1.5 gigs on these bad boys.
1.5 gigs, okay.
And the memory cards came in all the way up to 128 megabit blocks on various cards, and they made these. God knows what kind of second mark or third, crazy other cards that you could get in this thing. Nintendo was coming off of the N64, which I'm not going to say it was considered a failure, but it wasn't nearly as successful as their previous 2 endeavors. And then here comes the GameCube. And the GameCube, what do you think caused this thing to come in last in that generation?
The PS2.
But still, it came in last, is my point.
But the PS2 set standards for video game consoles, DVD playback, DVD-sized games. It set the standards, and when someone tried to deviate from that, in my opinion, that really hurt it. Plus, the GameCube was lacking the power that the Xbox and the PlayStation did at the time, which made converting games to them more difficult because you had to dumb things down.
I hear that a lot, but it's wrong.
But it's not wrong.
Technically speaking, this is direct. I had to double check this to make sure that Wiki wasn't off its nut here.
All right.
Technically speaking, and just technically speaking, doesn't mean it's programmably more powerful.
Okay.
The GameCube was more powerful than the PS2 at about half the size of the Xbox.
Well, yeah, and the Saturn was an incredible piece of machinery too.
I'm just throwing it out there. Now,
having the power and being able to control the power are 2 different things.
Speaking of control, here's one of the things I think sunk this system. It's a controller that was designed by a madman. Wacky as the day is long, Brett, this controller. It had one big red button, weird shaped, multiple buttons all over. And the sad thing about this controller is, if you take away the hideous, horrible, unbelievably ridiculous button setup, it's actually a decent little controller. I like the pad and everything. It feels good in your hand, but the button setup, horrible, hideous. And you had to depend on these third parties to come in and take care of business on these. These controllers were no good. Your thoughts?
And I think they also looked very amateur kid oriented.
They looked Fisher-Pricey.
And I certainly don't think that helped it, especially since gaming. This was a period of time when gaming was growing up.
Yeah, well, everywhere but there.
Well, no, but the population that had started with gaming was getting older, and they wanted more mature things. And Nintendo really held on, which doesn't make them wrong because they're picking up some of the new crowd. But the new crowd relies on mommy and daddy for money when the old crowd could pay for things themselves.
So to make up for this hideous joystick, well, not really, but Nintendo did what. They took a page from the Wonder Swan playbook and had multiple colors.
Oh, yeah.
Colors to beat the band. All the colors of the rainbow. Black, orange, blue, red, everything. You name it, they had it. And gold. They had consoles of gold. So you've got multiple color choices again.
Well, and they released a lot of special editions to go with games, so people would rebuy the console.
I never got that. As a collector, I guess I sort of am. I've never understood the appeal. And trust me, comics did the same exact crap with multiple variant covers and all this crap.
Well,
it's the same basic bear, homie.
Here's the thing. You're releasing new consoles to get them back on shelves, to get them fresh in people's minds.
I understand why they did it.
Right. And if you're doing that, why not make it slightly different so the highly obsessed will buy into it?
Well, so we're going to milk the highly obsessed of every cent they've got.
Oh, yeah, because business has never done that
before. These poor victims. I'm just talking across the board. They're...
Oh, yeah. Those with those types of tendencies will continuously get abused.
I remember our buddy, the Chud, when we got into comic book collecting, and he's an obsessive sort of nut type. And he would get, like, all the variant covers, about 20 issues each of them, and he would go after the... And it never worked. He took a bath. In fact, this comic collection is sitting over there. Yeah, I ended up buying it. So let's talk about the peripherals on the GameCube. Now, you're a peripheral guy. You've done you've had the X band, all this crazy stuff. Now, some of us don't even know. The GameCube had a broadband adapter. Did you know that?
I've never used it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was even released over here. It had a dial-up modem, so it had both. It was like the Dreamcast. It had both.
Oh, okay. I was just saying dial-up.
It also had that wacky Game Boy port. Now, this thing is actually pretty popular.
That is crazy popular.
And it's popular. A lot of people that like it are the people in on the YouTube community and Twitch because they can use it to at the time you could capture good game footage off the. Now, it's funny. I've got the peripheral, but I don't have the disc to make it work.
So you got nothing.
Well, I mean, I can listen.
I know.
I can make things happen, brother. If you know what I'm saying. It also had an e-card reader connected via the Game Boy player. Pretty wacky. That's crazy. It says here there aren't that many games that use the broadband adapter and on here, and apparently it was some sort of pay service that was part of this.
I'm sure.
I'm sure that's been messed around with. I will say now, let's talk about we've sort of been burying this thing's peripherals. Let's talk about a great peripheral they had.
Wait, no, we weren't burying it. The Game Boy peripheral was one of the best ever made.
Yeah, I was sort of burying it, but they did have something that came out that I hadn't seen before, and this was a top shelf. It's funny with a system that I mocked the controller so fervently. This thing had the Wavebird, which was the wireless controller. Yeah. These things were solid gold money. These were great, weren't they?
Yeah.
And they really, they were the first wireless controllers I thought that didn't suck.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I remember having the Dreamcast. I was begging for a while. Well, they didn't have nothing. They had nothing. But the Wavebird was out there. It was awesome. So I will give them 100% credit on that one. Now that was I think the Wavebirds were a third party. Did Nintendo make those? Oh, there you go. Now, just for fun, and before we move on to the main event.
Oh, you got all kinds of more peripherals, though.
Well, that's all I've got listed. What do you got?
Well, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not going to go over every single thing, because then Goof could play to a joystick port.
Well, no. But I'm pretty sure they had HDMI hookups for the GameCube, didn't they?
Well, now they have. I think I read they do have them now. They did not have those released then.
Also,
there were no HDMI. I can think of it. When was that established? I don't think it was even around when that thing was out. It had.
I don't know.
I remember I had component cables for my Wii, and I was like, "Oh, this is a big deal." And the Xbox had component cables, so I'm wagering you may have been able to get component cables.
Yeah, it would have been in that same ballpark.
So, let's talk about launch titles. just for fun, because I always like these, and I found a big list of them here.
It had a ton, didn't it?
So in Japan, of course, then Japan, and this gives us a chance to talk about a few of the games. In Japan, this, as I mentioned, this launched September 14, 2001, and the launch title lineup here isn't bad. I'm just going to go over a couple of these.
Because it had, like, what, 30 or so?
No, it had 3. It had 3 launch titles in Japan.
Okay.
In Japan. So you had, and this is a popular favorite that seems to be gaining in support here recently.
Okay.
They had Luigi's Mansion. People seem to are getting on board with the Luigi's Mansion. Now, I hear a lot about
that's a very popular game.
Then you had Super Monkey Ball.
That's also
a
very
good game. And then you had a Wave Race Blue Storm.
Also an excellent game.
I never played the Wave Race on the GameCube, I'd say.
Well, it's okay.
It's okay?
It's good.
It wasn't Wave Race with the big titles on the N64.
On the N64, yes.
Now, and I'm not going to go over all these because there's substantially more, but in the North American release, you got an all-star lineup of good and bad. So you, just to name a few here, you got Batman Vengeance. I remember playing that, and it was okay. You got Crazy Taxi. That's more of a Dreamcast game that you hear about. Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2. Then you've got a couple. You got, of course, Luigi's Mansion. You've got your Madden. You've got all your sports titles that came out. Now, here are the ones that I think are your console sellers here. Tarzan Untamed. No, just kidding. That did come out. Sorry, I blew your mind. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2.
Yeah.
Now, I've played that. That's pretty good, isn't it? I thought that was a really good one. You also had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
No.
What do you mean?
No,
I like the Tony Hawk games.
It died after 2, man.
Well, I mean, 2 is the best, but I think 3 is pretty good too. So it had everything that came out in Japan. And then Europe, they got a few different titles. Again, keep in mind everything I already mentioned. You had Bloody Roar. Remember?
Okay.
I never liked Bloody Roar.
Oh, it's okay.
Burnout. Now the Burnout series was
game.
great on the GameCube. That's where.
But a lot of these aren't exclusives.
Right, I'm just saying that's what came out. Cell Damage. That doesn't sound good. I don't know what that is. Donald Duck Quack Attack. ESPN International Winter Sports. I don't know about that either. FIFA. Got to have that. Driven. You've got...
Driven or Driver?
Driven.
Okay, no, Driver is a PS game.
That's right. Yeah. You've got... now, here's one you wouldn't have expected to be launched. Sonic Adventure 2.
Well, I mean, this was after the fall of Sega. So.
Yeah, and XG3 Extreme G Racing. So you had that. They had by the time this came to Europe, I will say the thing about waiting longer is you get better stuff whenever well, you get better stuff, I think. So a decent console that just it was. I mean, if it had been released a few years earlier, it probably would have been a huge hit. But by that time,
a few years earlier, yeah,
well,
it would have been pretty, pretty
like
amazing.
you said, graphically, it couldn't hold on up with the big dogs at that point. And plus, Nintendo had sort of gained a rep, hadn't it, at that point? It's like, I don't know, but take a chance on one of these.
You're hardcore Nintendo fans that will buy anything that Nintendo puts out.
Yeah.
It was a no-brainer. Because it wasn't like the console sucked. I don't think anyone can claim the GameCube, that thing just sucked, because it didn't just suck.
Where does this rank amongst the is this thing somewhere down at the bottom with the Wii U? I mean, is it down there in that area? Because I mean, the Wii U was a kind of another console.
Are you talking about success or just overall good console?
Both, I guess. I mean, I think they're linked. I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, and one thing this is the last console where Nintendo sort of didn't take a chance either. They've been doing crazy stuff to this.
I would put this above the Wii U. But no, this is one of their less memorable consoles.
And also, I mean, this right here moved Nintendo out of the realm of classic. I mean, when you take the cartridges out, you're one of the boys.
Now
and I think
you're a disky.
I think Nintendo, in their eyes, learned a lesson from this console. And the lesson was, if you can't run with the big dogs, you've got to try something else.
Right.
And they did. And to their credit, what looked like and people were writing Nintendo off. We've seen this many times. You should just do software. Your hardware's passed you by, and they took effectively the same machine as the GameCube and made it one of the highest selling consoles of all time, the time. We should mention the funny thing about collecting GameCubes. I've got a GameCube. I've never hooked it up more than once or twice, and the reason is I've got a Wii, and all the early Wii consoles most of the Wii consoles have full GameCube compatibility. I mean, you can put the disc right in there. If you pop the top, you've got your joystick ports, you've got your game card slots. So it sort of made the GameCube less. Oh, I always thought less desirable.
As a retro system.
Just as a system in general, because as a collected system.
Yeah.
Now, all that said, much like everything else in the retro world, everything swings back around. And the GameCube, much like the N64 did a few years ago, now the GameCube is starting to receive a good hard look from people as a collectible, and has went up in value somewhat. I mean, they're still not. I think I priced them around $30 to $50 for a used one. And I think you could probably find a better deal. Now, what would I buy? A GameCube or a Wii? I'd buy a Wii in about 2 seconds. I've got plenty of them in there already, because the Wii does everything, plus it does other stuff. But I mean, effectively, the Wii was a jacked up, funky peripheral GameCube for all intents and purposes.
It was.
And they made it work.
Because the Wii was Nintendo saying, "Man, we want to try out motion controls, but we don't really want to commit."
Yeah, you're right.
And then the end result was, man, we should have committed.
Yeah, you're right. So, from the vast library of GameCube titles,
yes,
there
are a lot of good ones.
There are. There are actually plenty of good titles, but I mean, again, there are some exclusives, but a lot of the titles just run across to other systems too. Some of the titles I'd be more interested in. We had to pick 2 titles from amongst them for each other, because this is Bizarro week. We spun the wheel. It was Bizarro, which means we picked the other guy's games. So I'm going to lead the charge this week for the game Brent picked for me. And what Brent picked for me was a little Kirby action, Kirby Air Ride.
Kirby Air Ride.
Now, I had never heard of this game.
Yeah.
I don't play any Kirby games. All right,
so you were super lost.
I knew who Kirby was from Smash Bros.
Okay.
And I think I may have played one of his older games. Because I could eat guys and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I never heard of this. Completely under my radar. This was developed by HAL Laboratory. Now, they have a name. They've worked with Nintendo.
Absolutely. Long time.
More than a little. And this was released in Japan, July 11th, 2003, in North America, October 13th, 2003, and in Europe, February 2004, and Australia, March of 2004. So again, you're talking almost a year between the Japanese and the Australian release. It's funny how Australia, you'd think they would get, since they're sort of closer to Japan, why don't they get in?
I don't think that's how it works.
That's the way it should work, man. The director on this thing was Masahiro Sakura, and produced by Hiroki Shuga, among others. Now, what is this game? Well, what you've got here is sort of like baby's first kart racer, I believe is the way you termed it. This is a singular multiplayer. It's a kart game that doesn't necessarily have karts in it. You pick from a cast of none. I mean, as far as I can tell, there's just Kirby's in this. And you race around these various tracks. Now there are different game modes, which I'll get into. So this is one of the first times we played the crap out of these games, and we actually got to play this one together.
Yeah,
I went and played all
multiplayer action.
I played all of it separately, and then then we went through every track together except for the overhead tracks. We played some of those. So what you've got here, really, in essence, is 3 different games. Okay, the first game is your straight up kart style racing game. You pick a Kirby, and then eventually when you unlock enough vehicles, you pick a vehicle, and you are unleashed onto, I believe you start out with 9 tracks, 8 or 9 tracks that you run on with your Kirby and his little floaty, because it's an air ride, but eventually you can get other stuff that's not a floaty. You can get like
boxes,
scooters and boxes and little jets and
the
mini bikes and stuff like that.
There are quite a few.
And we unlocked several of these during our several sessions. This game is super simple to play because it only requires you to use the one analog controller, and I think it'll work with the digital, and then you use one button.
One button.
That's it. And you're thinking to yourself, this seems limiting. Well, you're right. Kirby does not. I mean, so here's the thing. Kirby doesn't really accelerate on these things. They just sort of go at the same speed. Now, and I will say your vehicles make a big difference in the way this game plays. We unlocked, we think we played 4 or 5 vehicles. All right, the standard vehicle that comes with it is just this floaty gimmick.
It's a star. It's a Kirby star.
And you
for those that know Kirby.
Okay, and you get on this thing, you float along, and what you do is when you don't use the button until you hit a turn. And what they want you to do is hold the button as you spin around the turn, and when you let it go, it gives you a boost. Yeah. Right. So, but if you hold it, if you hit the button at any other point, it just sort of slows you down. It really doesn't do anything.
The button is sort of like a handbrake, because it greatly deaccelerates you, but allows you incredible maneuverability.
You've also got you also will use the button on these turbo pads you'll come across. They look like green arrows when you hit them. You hit the button and you launch real quick. They just shoot you down the line. It's just it's like Excite Bike.
When you hit the button, your character dips. Like they're floating above the ground. When you hit the button, you dip onto the ground, which allows you to hit the speed pad and makes you go.
You just basically hit the button on the thing. I mean, that's what it looks like.
I mean, no, but I'm just saying what it does.
Then you've got one of the cars we played could glide better than the other. So when you get air on some of the levels, you'll glide further and
faster.
And you'll see areas that you can't get to in some cars, and so you can get to them in the glidey car. Then there's a bizarre vehicle that goes pretty fast, but it never ever it can't turn unless you hit the button and turn when you hit the button. Yeah. And so what that means
literally you have no left or right when you're on the ground.
You tap to make a turn, and like I said, each car has a different thing. So this one, you don't hold the button to go into turns. And this one, you have to tap the button just to alter your trajectory.
Yeah, and when you hit the button, you really stop. You stop really hard.
And then there's another vehicle that we played that it was like a box, basically. It looked like he was driving a little Zamboni. And that one just went around at a steady pace. And that was pretty much the button. I don't even remember what the button did. What did the button do? It didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything. So I mean, it still stopped you, but you didn't have that power boost.
Now, as far as we got into it, all you ever raced with was a various colored Kirby. Were there different Kirby colors in other games, or is that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty.
Are they all Kirby? Or are they just?
Well, I mean, they're all.
Is Kirby a race? What is that? It is. Okay, well, there you go. It shows what I knew. So you race around these tracks. The tracks are pretty good. They look. I mean, for the most part, they look good. Some look great. Yeah. And they're
colorful and flashy.
Yeah, they're colorful, and there'll be these long like pipes that you get on that are really neat looking. They almost like Sonic you up a little bit, make you go real fast as you spin through these turns and twists. You can set all kinds of options, set the number of laps. You can have hit points on or off, which we never played with the hit points on where you could get killed. But you can play in a mode where you can just lose the race by that. It keeps time. So it does everything you would expect a kart style racer to do. The one thing I will say, and this goes throughout the game, is that the game has outstanding tunes.
Incredible music.
The music, and you sort of come to expect it, I guess, from a Nintendo property. But they excelled themselves in this one. I looked up to see who wrote this stuff. Now, you've got several guys. I'm going to go ahead and name them just for fun. You got Shogo Sakai. I'm assuming some of these people will know. Jun Ishikawa. Hirokazu Ando. Tashida Ikigami. Those were your guys that composed the music. And these guys, I'm guessing these guys were not, this wasn't their first rodeo, if you know what I mean. But the music also fits the levels. They did a good job with the music. That's, for me, music, easy high point right there. Graphics were fine, like I said, so there was no problem there. Your second, so basically that's the kart racing element. Then you've got your second element, which is this sort of city exploration game. And you drive your Kirby through the city, and there are enemies in the city. There's a radar, and you go around popping open boxes to upgrade your little cart. You could also get out of your cart, GTA style, and go get into another cart. You know, the problem I had, now I actually played this on way more than you, and the problem I had with it just was kind of boring, to be honest with you. hitting the boxes over and over was a pain in the butt, and it was hard to pick up what you eventually knocked open.
Yeah.
You would also go a good while without seeing anybody. That got old. When we played the multiplayer, I only saw Brent a few times. I was able to run into him a couple times, but you're talking about a wide open space. It's not.
It's huge. The map is huge.
Yeah,
it's way too big for something like this.
And so, since all these games allow 4 people, one would assume that this would be more fun with 4 people, but we didn't have 4, did we?
Well, we had 2 computer players though.
Right, but I'm just saying it might be more fun with 2 humans.
No, I think the map is just too large.
Yeah, it didn't do it for me. Now the weird thing about this level is once you finish it, it assesses what your car was added to it. So if you pick up a bunch of speed boosts, your car will be faster. If you pick up a bunch of battery packs, your car will be able to charge. It'll go faster, longer. If you pick up a bunch of defense bonuses, you get the point here. And then after you've completed this thing, and it's a timed event, I think it's like 5 minutes, and you can fool with it. And you can also turn off the timer and just roll around. Then they put you in some kind of weird, like I've seen 2 of these different races that it puts you in after it. One I did was just a standard race that you go to after the city thing ends. And then me and Brent also came across one where it's like, what was it, a long jump?
Ski jump, yeah.
And which was weird. I mean, I don't know what these mini games were. I don't know how many there are, but I didn't think much of that city aspect of the game. It just didn't do it for me. Now the city. It says a bunch of crazy stuff happens in the city. The only thing I ever saw happen was this bit where it turns everyone's speed up full blast for about 10, 15 seconds. That was it. So, I was underwhelmed by that. Then your third element is an overhead racer, a la supercars, or when we described it as your Iron Man off-road racing. Which
that's really what it is.
Ripped off Iron Man Stewart. Of course, that was ripped off too. But in this one, you pick your car and you go on a small map from overhead and drive around. Now, you like this one more than me. This is perfectly serviceable as an overhead racer.
Yeah.
But to me, this seems sort of just kind of tacked on to kind of bolster what you had. You could see these guys whipping this out in a month or two.
It was definitely a tacked on thing. It's not a game seller.
It was sort of fun.
I liked it. 4
people would probably be a lot of fun. But I mean, it's not. It was surprising that it was in there, I'll be honest with you.
The courses were varied enough. Well, they're supposed to be small.
Some of them are bigger, but not.
They're varied enough that you have shortcuts if the map allows it. The map changes as you race on it. So
yeah, I don't think that, and there's a couple bizarre control elements to this one. Like when you can change it. There were some instant control choices on that one.
No, I mean that's pretty standard for this above.
Yeah, but that was the fault was that real crazy.
Race with the way you're pointing the stick.
It was bizarre.
That's all standard.
Now, so with all that said, was the game any good? Well, in my opinion, it was not great. And the reason is it's a very simple game because the meat of this game is going to be the racing element of it.
Yes.
And the tracks are good and they're fairly long. Some are longer than others. One is super long, the last one. And I'm sure there's unlockables and whatnot. But I was underwhelmed by the actual racing. There are power-ups. I will say it was better as a multiplayer racer than it was playing by myself. We had a lot more fun playing together. And we did have some very close races. Yeah. But one of the reasons is your cars don't go very fast. They sort of go the same speed. We would try different cars. If we played the same car, that's when it was really close.
Yeah.
This would be a good intro into kart racing. Maybe that's what they were thinking when they put this thing in there. There are tons of unlockables. Every time you do something the game likes, it takes this screen that's like a grid, and it pops up and says, "Okay, you did this," and so you unlock that. So you've got that ability. Apparently, this was one of the games that also supported LAN play, which we obviously couldn't try that. That's kind of neat, but I guess that's sort of ridiculous at this point because no one really cares. So another big problem I've got with this game is the fact that it's a Kirby game. What the hell's Kirby doing in this? They could have put it. I mean, explain to me. Now you're a big Kirby guy.
Okay.
It seems to me Kirby gets in a car and drives around, right? So it's not. or floats around, all right, or whatever he's riding.
His
but I mean,
star. His star is actually.
But I'm saying, putting Kirby in this game, this could have been anyone's game with a few minor modifications. This had zero to do with Kirby. I know Kirby enough to know that.
I disagree.
He doesn't eat nobody.
Yes, he does.
I mean, it's not like
No. Stop. Wrong. Bad Aaron. The entire time you're racing, you have the ability. There are enemies on the track, and you have the ability to suck these enemies up and gain their powers. And the same powers you always see in Kirby games. You can get the sword. You can shoot the little lightning eye things. You can turn into a wheel. You can get wings, turn into the bird thing. And those are power-ups, their version of power-ups in the level. So that is what ties this to a Kirby
Okay, now
game.
allow me to retort, if I may.
All right.
It doesn't look like he's eating anybody. It looks like he runs over a power-up.
No, that's incredibly wrong. He eats them, and he squashes down just like he does in the Kirby
I played the game.
games.
It looks like a power-up in a kart racer.
No.
You could have had anybody. You could have put Mario in there, Sonic, anybody.
And all the power-ups he eats are things from past Kirby games, even when he turns into the wheel.
They're generic.
They're not generic. They're Kirby.
They're generic.
They're Kirby.
This is some tacked on crapiola, in my opinion.
You just don't know the lore.
You don't know the game. Listen, I'm telling you, you could have put any character in this with a few modifications. You can't deny that.
What game is that not true?
Well, I'm just saying, there's nothing here that ties for me that ties this to any sort of Kirby game. I mean, Kirby ever raced before like this? I mean, is Kirby have a history of racing? I mean, it's a kart game that has Kirby. It doesn't have, and the thing is, it doesn't have anyone else. So if you're hung up on characters, I hope you like Kirby. This is his air ride, and you're stuck with it. You're not getting anybody else.
You don't select different characters. You select different carts. Now, okay. Go ahead and finish your summary. Your incorrect summary.
No, it's totally correct. Listen, if you were a person playing this game, just like me, all right, normal guy, you're going to get in this game, you're going to cruise around with Kirby, you're going to run over power-ups, and you're going to get them, and to varying degrees of success. And then you're going to be like, wow, that's the end of that. I mean, there is no depth here. There is no, it's not like a proper racer. It's just, it's very strange. You ever ride those cars at Kings Island? You're like, oh, these are race cars. But in actuality, you can't go very fast. They're on a track that you can't get off of. And you just you're basically feeling, they could ride without you, is what I'm saying. You don't have to even be there. That's sort of the way this game feels. Like, you could probably put the joystick down and go get a pop, because your guy's going to keep going forward the entire game. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's a safety game. It's a safety game, and it didn't do it for me, man. I mean, it's okay. I think there was a good racer here that just sort of kidified down. And this right here is a game that, if you put it on the list of reasons that the GameCube didn't do well because people thought the games were too kidified, this is an incredibly kidified game, and with a tenuous tie to a Nintendo property.
What would you give this out of 10?
Oh, normally I won't do
but I'm putting you on the spot.
Number a review. I would say probably. I mean, I did have some fun, so I would probably go somewhere in the C range.
That's
so
not out of 10.
Oh, it's okay. Let's say
C is a letter.
Okay, let's say 76. 76%.
Out of 10.
7.6.
Oh gosh.
How's that?
You don't know how to use. Okay, so you gave it a 7.6. Okay, 76 out of 100 then. Okay.
I said that.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. This game's not very good, but it's not for the reasons why Aaron says.
It is.
It is very Kirby. It has all the elements that you would expect from a Kirby game, where you're eating people and you're gaining their powers, and those powers do help you in the race. The driving in this is very strange and different from other kart racers because there are tons of U-turns. And I mean absolutely go the other way as sharp as you can U-turns. And the reason why they do that is that's the whole gimmick of the game.
Yep.
Is hold the button to brake, to swing around real hard, charge up, let go, burst of speed down the track. So, personally, I didn't like that track design. Even after I understood what I was doing, I didn't like the track design because it's a whole lot of back and forth. So for me, the track design on this was really poor. Even with that gimmick, the track design was very poor. There are certainly a lot of sections of the track where you get on rails, and it's true. You can jump from rail to rail, but you're just going, and the game is playing itself. And that happens in every level. And when you're on the rails, you literally are just sitting there doing nothing. Other problems with it, the RC Pro-Am style overhead racing game was probably, for me, the best part of the whole game. Because I like that type of game. It was neat that the power-ups were still there and still had some functionality. The way the stages changed to allow you to get shortcuts, to get ahead of your opponents, I liked all of that. The city, roam around, get power-ups to go into this final area, I hated it. It was just driving around for 5 minutes, picking up power-ups to do this one little bonus thing at the end, be it a race, be it a jump, be it whatever. I didn't like it. It just took too long, and driving around in the cityscapes were very, very boring. Now, was this game designed for me? No, it was not designed for me. It was designed for probably kids between 8 and 12 who are, that's already a target of Kirby. Tons of older people play Kirby. I play Kirby games. But that's why Kirby was used for this game. It was trying to get the kid crowd into a kart-friendly racer. Are there elements of this game that are more adult, that someone with more gaming experience will excel above someone with less experience? Yes, because of the different types of racers that the different cars you can pick. Some of them are very geared toward higher talent players. But for me, this game didn't offer enough to put it even on par with something like a Mario Kart that has all these elements plus interesting tracks. So for me, I would give this game a 7 out of 10, maybe even a 6 out of 10, because it was very dumbed down. I understand why it was dumbed down. I understand I'm not the target audience, and it doesn't make it a bad game. It just makes it a bad game for me.
I'll just close with this. Masahiro Sakura, the guy who designed this game, and he was the guy that ran the Kirby series, he resigned from his position after this game was released.
That doesn't mean anything.
Citing that he was tiring of consistent pressure from the industry to keep making sequels. And this right here, you can tell this was a tired man on his way out when he gave this thing the high sign. Well, there's not much to it.
It's not like Kirby games stopped, though.
Let's talk, but how many kart racers have seen Kirby appear in? Not too many. I'm just saying, on that, what was the one that came out for the GameCube? Double Dash, Mario Kart? Let's face facts. Any kid can play that, and it's a lot more fun. If you're going to play a kart racer, this isn't the one.
But this was targeted at a lower audience.
Well, missed
target.
A
younger audience, not lower. Probably lower, shorter.
The reviews on this were sort of exactly what we talked about. Edge gave this 3 out of 10. They murdered it.
No, that's stupid.
Well, I'd say EGM gave it 7 out of 10. Game Informer 7 out of 10. Game Revolution C-. Game Pro 4 out of 5. GameSpot 5 out of 10. GameSpy 3 out of 5. So you can see that most people are falling in line with me, and to a lesser extent you. You can get this game on eBay now. Now get this. This is a weird one. eBay, $30 or $40. You can get this game. All right.
Yeah.
In the folder. Now, if you want the game like sealed, I didn't see anybody buy it, but it cost a fortune. I guess that's the way all the GameCube games are. Is the sealed games are going to cost a fortune. Our good friend Graham W. Vebke had a look at this one. He writes, a kart racing game that to me is 3 games in 1. Air Ride is a racing view like F-Zero mixed with Super Monkey Ball. Top Ride is a top-down view like Super Sprint. And City Trials an open world mode to collect parts, then race and perform a scenario. The controls are responsive and simple. You only use the A button to brake and it auto-accelerates. The graphics are great. The gameplay is smooth and fast. The sound and music are also great. By the way, bunch of the same guys that worked on the Smash Bros. Music games, I found out. The only downside is simplicity of this game, which I guess is aimed at younger players, but playing this for the review has cemented me seeking this game for my PAL GameCube collection. 8 out of 10. So Graham, he liked it.
I think he liked it slightly more than we did.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. He's got some kids in the house too.
I think this is a perfect game for kids.
Speaking of kids, don't let your kids play this next game. I picked this for the Brent because we wanted to get. Now we've gone from we're going from one extreme to the other. Brent, tell us about your game this week.
Aaron gave me Def Jam Fight for New York, and yeah, I guess we're gonna fight for New York. So let's go way back.
It should be Fight in New York.
It really should be, yeah. Let's go way back. Before we talk about any part of the game, we have to talk about what Def Jam is. Because if you don't know, you're going to be really confused why Def Jam is at the front of this title.
Yeah.
Def Jam is a record label that came to existence about 1984. And their beginnings were just to launch their own record, right? They had a music single that they wanted to produce, and they didn't have anyone to produce it, so they actually made their own production company and launched it. And after that, it did really well, and they were able to bring on more and more bands. And in the beginning, it was pretty much anyone they could get. They got Public Enemy was a big one. They had Slayer, huge metal bands.
Who was it that ran? It was like Rick Rubin, wasn't that the guy's name that ran Def Jam?
You mean the very beginning? Yes.
Yeah,
Rick
sort
Rubin
of an infamous
and Russell Simmons.
Yeah, and Rick Rubin's sort of an infamous character.
So as it evolved and as time went on, they started focusing more on just hip hop because they got Jay-Z. They picked, and that was when it really took off. So they started making it a hip hop label to launch mainly hip hop music, which they did great on, really great, right up until they got nailed for money laundering. And that pretty much killed the label. It is still in existence. It's passed on to different hands now. Jay-Z actually ran it for a while, and he was in control when the games came out. So I don't know if he had a hand in that, but he was the one running it. So Def Jam record label had all these hip hop people under their banners, and I mean tons, like 50 artists. And they made a game. The original game was Def Jam Vendetta, I believe.
No, I thought that was a sequel, wasn't it? I think this is the first one, and the Def Jam Vendetta was a sequel.
No, the New York is the sequel.
No, I don't think so. Because I know this game has a sequel.
Def Jam Fight for New York is the second game in the Def Jam series.
Really? I had them backwards.
To Def Jam
that's my
Vendetta.
bad. I remember not liking it, but that's why I didn't play it.
So, why is a music label releasing a fighting game? Because this is a fighter wrestler game, but we'll get into that. Well, they took all of their musicians, put them in character form, and shoved them into a fighting game. And Vendetta sold well enough that they gathered up more and more of their people, and they did it again. That was Fight for New York. And it was actually brilliant because you instantly got name recognition. I mean, I'm not a hip-hop guy, and Snoop Dogg, from tons of things, and there's plenty of music people in here that you recognize even if you're not in the hip-hop scene, which instantly gave the game credibility, which made people look at it, which made people buy it. This sold fairly well. So in Fight for New York, what do? Well, you play a no-name schlub, the character you make, and the very first scene is you freeing one of the club bosses, from the cops, breaking them out. And in Vendetta, he gets the last scene is him getting arrested.
That makes sense now that you say that, because I was wondering I feel like I was missing part of the show. Okay.
So you free this guy, and he takes you into his crew as a fighter. And these guys run clubs. They're mostly dance clubs, is what they're supposed to be, but they're also underground fighting arenas. And apparently, if you go into someone else's club and beat up their fighters, you kind of take that territory. So it's kind of a territory advancement game. If you win so many fights, you take over their club. and you're helping your guy, D-Bob, take over their other Snoop Dogg's, who is a crow in the game.
Yeah.
Take over his clubs. The story mode, you fight and you fight and you fight, and eventually you have to go against your own club all over the plot twist. I mean, it's nothing deep.
I disagree on that.
You think the story is deep?
I really dug it. I mean, I felt like I was, and the way they interweave the fights in, I thought it was cool. I thought the story was really good.
Okay.
I really liked it.
I don't think the story's anything revolutionary. You're fighting for turf.
No, there's more to it than that, though. You're fighting for your life. They kidnap your girlfriend. You gotta go get her. You even fight to get the girlfriend. They did a good job of giving you reasons to fight.
Okay. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's anything revolutionary. So, you have all these musicians. There's like 50 selectable characters, men and women both in this. What kind of fighting game is it? Well, it's a mix between a fighter and a wrestling game. The original game, Vendetta, was almost strictly wrestling. And then they added in the fight elements into this more so. And there are different fighting styles. You've got street fighting, you've got kickboxing, you've got martial arts, you've got wrestling, and then you've got submission. Those are the branches that the different fighters are trained in. And you can actually have multiple types of fighting in one fighter. Yeah. So you're in an arena, and you're beating each other up, and you get the guy's health down to nothing, and you're beating on him, You can't kill him just by beating on him. These guys always get up. The gimmick to this game is to actually land the finishing blow, you either have to submit them by draining their health on a limb. Like if you have their arm, you keep working their arm until it breaks. You can get a KO that way, or you can use a weapon from the crowd and smash the guy with that, or use elements in the stage, like ramming their head into a speaker or smacking them into a light. You can get a KO that way, or you can do your special maneuver and get a KO from it. That's very important because it's actually very cleverly woven into the game that for the crowd to like you more, you have to buy newer, more expensive clothes, newer jewelry, and then they'll help you out more. So I thought that was a very clever way of making that an important part of the game, getting new outfits, getting new clothes.
I think you can also beat the guy if you have a real good combo going. Because, I mean, I've punched him and did some stuff to like that.
It depends. Yeah. Like, the Street Fighters can KO a guy with a haymaker. Kickboxers can do it with a strong grapple strike. Martial artists can do it with a flying kick.
Martial artists?
That's right.
I want to see that game.
Oh, man.
That writes itself.
It's like Clay Fighter, but
that's
with
when
otters.
You kick Kirby out and you put into martial artists.
You've got wrestlers that you can KO people with strong grapples, and, of course, submission with submission. So the fighting in the game is pretty good. The create a character in this is pretty good. There are lots and lots. I think there's like 80 different finishers you can assign to your guy.
Yeah.
And like I said, the roster is like 50 characters deep.
And they're all crazy looking.
And they're all
voiced.
Represent, different people in the music industry. Yeah. So if you know the music industry and you like fighting games, this is like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And the music for the game is, of course, all the hip-hop songs that they have all these labels for. And it's extensive. It's tons of music.
They really went bananas on that.
All in all, the different elements of this game are really good, but the game had always been a fun fighter. It was just something you sat down with your buddies and you beat each other up, or you went through the story mode a couple times. Crazy part, in 2018, this game was released in 2004. In 2018, some guys brought it upon themselves to make tier lists. And I don't know if do you watch any kind of competitive fighting like Evo?
Very rarely.
Okay. A tier list is very, very important in a fighting game because it says this character is just natively better for these reasons than another fighter.
Yeah.
And without a tier list, you can't set up rules in your fighting matches in your tournaments.
Okay.
So when this tier list was made, it upped the popularity of this game, this incredibly old game to a whole new level, and now this is played competitively in different fighting events.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And it is all from a few guys that sat around and said, you know what, we're going to do this, and they did it right. And some fighters are so good you can't even pick them. And of course, they're not going to go back and balance this game. That was never the intent. It was never intended to be a serious fighter. But now that someone has a tier list, they're starting to do more with it. So overall, this came out. Something else I need to mention. This didn't just come out for GameCube.
I know.
This came out for the Xbox, and it also came out for the PlayStation 2. The GameCube is the worst version by far.
Why? Really?
It has oversaturated graphics. The crowd, which you interact with a lot, it's not just like a crowd in a football game. You get right up in these people's faces, and they help you in the fight. It has a lower texture count. The music and the sound is muffled. In the story mode on the Xbox and the PlayStation, your character can have 6 different voices. Yeah. If you want to sound real gruff, or if you want to sound kind of sweet, the GameCube you get 1. So it really shows some of the limitations of the GameCube, that the Xbox and the PlayStation were able to do these things, and the GameCube wasn't. Mm-hmm. But still, overall, I think this is a pretty fun game with deep roots in hip-hop. And you could not have this game as it is without the hip-hop license, without the hip-hop characters, because the whole flow of the game for fighting for these clubs is very ingrained in that sort of mentality. Mm-hmm. What did you think?
Well, I've always been a fan of this game. I already played it mostly on the Xbox, but I had played the GameCube version. I know someone that had it. And this is one of those games you're like, I would never play that. Well, until you play it, and then you're like, I got to play that. One thing you didn't mention is the game was built, the engine of this thing was built from the guys over at Aki, who did all the great N64 wrestling games, and they've worked the WWF games forever. So these guys have deep roots into that sort of engine, making some sort of combative engine. I can say without hesitation that this was by far the best wrestling style game on the Xbox, the original Xbox. Nothing came close. And on the GameCube, now the GameCube had a couple good wrestling games, so I'm not going to say that on here, but as a fighting engine, it's great. You've got 4 simultaneous players that you can pick, which is awesome. This is the answer to the question, what if they evolved Pit Fighter? Pit Fighter.
That is very true.
I mean, you've got the audience, like Brent said, the audience is like a 5th combatant, and they don't care who they grab. If you manage to maneuver your guy near them and throw them in there, that will help you. I didn't even know about the fact that your clothes made it. That's awesome.
Yeah, because if you have, that gives you charisma. If you have less charisma, the crowd is less likely to give you weapons.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And they are actually less likely to have, because you know how sometimes you'll throw them into the crowd and they'll just throw them back out? It's due to your charisma score.
And what they do is, they were very clever when they designed this. In wrestling, you toss the guy in the ropes, he bounces off, you do a move. And this, you'll throw him into the audience, and the audience is effectively the ropes. They just sort of boot him back off. There's bottles lying around that you can use, just like Pit Fighter, I might add. There's also elements of the map, and there are different arenas that have different stuff you can use. You could grind a guy's face into a cage. You could throw him into a post that you're fighting beside. You could throw him into a speaker. You could ram him into a light.
There's a lot of environmental damage.
And so it makes it feel like you're seeing a real crazy, hip-hop club battle.
Bar brawl, yeah.
The guys will taunt. All the guys have a ton of charisma, and they're all different. Aside from a ton of rap guys, you've got Karma Electras in this game. Yeah. You've got, you've got your Flavor Flays and your Ice Teas and all the guys that, if you know anything about rap music, you would know. You've got Machete, Danny Trejo's in the game. Gotta love that. Any game you can have Danny Trejo in is awesome.
And he's in half of the story mode.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's take off.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Well, one thing about Machete, Danny Trejo gets killed almost everything he does. There are elements where you could like knock guys. You could kill guys. I mean, effectively throw them in front of a subway car, or you just maul them, which is cool.
Depending on the arena,
right.
Some of the win conditions is you must throw your opponent in front of the subway, or you must throw your opponent out the window.
Yeah.
And in the story mode, it makes sense. And if you're playing just on versus battles, you can choose those stages or not choose those stages.
Yeah. The voice acting in this is great.
It's really
they did
good.
a really good. I mean, it's realistic. It's got a real cool vibe, at least to me. I mean, we're nowhere near New York, but it made you feel like you were going up the ranks. When you create your guy, he's pretty basic at the beginning. But the good thing about the game is, and this is one of the few games I gave a crap about this. I've got a hip hop Fight for New York version of myself in the game. And so at first I was like, oh, I don't have the beard, I wanted the glasses. But you go into the store and you can get, that's where you get the cool stuff to upgrade the way your guy looks. And you can make a pretty cool looking guy. They did a lot of crossover ads with like real
Reebok
manufacturers
and, Nike
and stuff.
And
which is cool. You go to the gym to train. You didn't talk about that either. In the story mode, you can train your guy up. As you get more money, you can buy more moves. Henry Rollins is in there getting you in good shape, you know, if you remember him from back in the punk days. There's a lot of elements. I mean, this is a great game, and this is one of those games that came out of totally out of nowhere for me when it came out. I like the look of it on the GameCube. It may be the less version of the 3, but I mean, I thought it looked and played fine. I didn't have any trouble at all with the way it played. It looked okay. I mean, I know there may be certain variances, but I mean, for the most part, if you buy it for the GameCube, it's not like you're getting screwed.
Well, I think the biggest drawback for playing it on the GameCube, longest load times.
Well, yeah.
And I'm talking about between matches, 15 seconds extra over the PlayStation.
Although the road loading was always sort of the Achilles heel of this game. There's some load times, but it's not horribly bad. But overall, if you want something that gives you a unique vibe and a unique play element, and the fights are off the chart, crazy, violent, insane. I mean, it's not like Mortal Kombat, but I mean, it's so ludicrous. The moves you do are just ridiculous. And you can get these blazing moves, and they go crazy. Yeah. And it's really awesome.
Yeah, you're not throwing fireballs, but you are still doing superhuman.
You're flipping
feats.
guys 3 or 4 times in the air and monkey flipping them into it's crazy. It's crazy. So overall, I love this game, which is why I picked it for him. I didn't know if you'd played it. I thought you had.
Yeah, I've actually played it on Xbox back in the day. Now I have a question for you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Would you? Okay, first I'm going to do the ludicrous question.
He's in the game too.
I know. I knew you were going to say something. Would you prefer to play this over a 2D fighter? This is more of a 3D fighter versus 2D fighter, but
this is, I mean, when it comes to a 3D fighter,
No. That's not what I asked. I'm getting there. Would you prefer to play this over a 2D fighter?
Well, so you're asking me if I like this better than I like, say, the best 2D fighter. I don't.
Okay. Now, my next question is, where does this rank in the 3D fighters?
This is at the tippity top for me.
Really?
Yeah, because here, you know, you're talking about if you're talking about 2D brawlers, like say a Smash Bros or something like that, or a 3D. I would play this a million times before I play this. I don't like those games.
No, I was talking more like your Street Fighters, King of Fighters.
What other games would you put ahead of it? I mean, in terms
of this?
Yeah.
Fighting Vipers.
Oh, no way. Are you kidding me?
No,
Fighting Vipers?
Yeah,
that game is overrated.
Because no one likes Fighting Vipers.
No, I mean, no, it's coming back. People start to talk about how great it is, and it's not that
my
great.
Problem
it's weird looking. Sorry, it is.
My problem with this game is it's not deep. It's rock, paper, scissors at its core.
It's the Aki fighting system.
Yeah, but for me, I don't. That's not what I really want in this for 3D fighter. Of wrestling games, I would put wrestling games above this too. I would rather have crazy grapples. I mean, there's tons of crazy grapples in this. Don't get me wrong, but I would rather have WWE style wrestling moves over this game. But I do feel that for a pit fighter, which is a perfect example, a pit fighter style game where this is just absolute brawler with great environmental damage, this is among the tops of those.
I think we can both agree that they took a license and squeezed every drop out of it with this game.
I
mean, you could not, and you're talking to a couple doofusy, doughy guys from West Virginia, but I'm down with the clown. In fact, that's all they
Insane
needed
Clown
was the Insane
Posse
Clown
was not in
Posse, which
this.
they're not part of Def Jam. But believe it or not, I believe at one point they were on the Disney music label, if you can believe that, back in the day.
Clowns, man.
We can both agree that this is a great game and sort of a hidden gem these days. I didn't realize it made a comeback, and that's awesome.
So for the prices of this,
Yeah.
crazy time, the GameCube PAL version is the cheapest you can buy this game.
Yeah.
But the GameCube North American license is among the most expensive versions of this game.
Weird.
Running from $17 to $50, which is kind of crazy. And then, of course, if you want your box copy, you're looking at $100, $110.
Graham had a look at this one, Brent, and he writes, for whatever reason, I can't get into the Def Jam series of games, and I find the whole concept pretty much dross after you've played one. I thought the wrestling and fights were okay, but it relies too much on the finishing combos. Graphics are good. However, the story I found was near tragic, and the voice acting was not great at times. But that's funny, because I thought it was really good. It probably is one of the more approachable games though, for gameplay in this genre, and you don't necessarily need to enjoy the setting to be able to spend time with the wrestling and the battles. It's for me, it's just confirmed not to add to my PAL GameCube collection. 5.5 out of 10. So
I think that score is a little harsh, but I can certainly see if this is not your thing, if you don't like a lot of cursing or a lot of violence, then this game's not for you.
Like Boat won't be playing this one anytime soon.
And you know, I don't think you're wrong for saying this game's not for you.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. On the other hand, I love violence and cursing, so it's great for me. Hey, real quick before we move along, I priced an actual GameCube, and just I wanted to mention this. Like I said, you can get one for about $40, $25 to $60. Boxed, you're looking $75 to $90. If you want one new in box, they're out there, and I had to double check this price: $1,830 for a brand new mint.
No one's paying that.
Mint and money GameCube. Speaking of mint, you know what it's time for. We've got to mine the wheel, my friend. Let's mine this sucker. Now, we added a lot of stuff this week, and I'm going to explain there. I'm going to go over this, a little bit stuff. So, Bizarro rolled up last week, so we took it off the wheel. And we added, amongst the things we added, let me just kind of take the wheel here. We've got Super Graphics right there. The Micro B, a computer from Australia. It also got added, and we've also added the chat subject choice. So, you in the chat room, get ready for a subject choice if need be. So, Brent, if you'll do the honors to spin the wheel, we'll make the deal here.
I wouldn't mind a chat subject choice.
I'm
rooting for you, chat. Oh, we got...
Looks like the new one just came up. It said Super
Graphics.
So now this is an interesting one. This is sort of the one of the sequels to the Turbo Graphics. I've not played any of the games for it.
I have not either.
And so, but it's funny, we never covered it. I was kind of surprised, so kind of wacky.
If I'm not mistaken, this has a very limited library.
It does. I believe it had 5 or 6 real total titles released, so we'll have to determine how we're going to play that.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. I want to mention that we are also a podcast. We do podcast, and we stream video live every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So look for us on any of your favorite podcatchers or whatnot. Brent, who do we have cooking the chat today?
In chat, we've got Retro Man Cave, Amiga Bang, Mohawk Maw, Picard made an appearance. We have a little bit of, what theme is that?
Airwolf.
Airwolf, thank you. Oh, now we're copyright straight. Good job, Aaron. Necronom was in chat. I know Pixels was up there. Jan made a stop by. A lot of people. It was a crazy chat day.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's great. Well, we appreciate everybody stopping by. So, are you fired up for some Super Graphics next week?
Oh, free lunch.
Free lunch. He's always around. He's giving a free lunch.
Daisley stopped by. Duncan Styles, of course, who made our incredible background.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve stopped by.
I have also had a submission for music. Believe it or not.
Oh, excellent! You might want to mention that again.
I'll be unveiling that along with the artist's name and his multiple compositions, and on this week's trailer at the end of this thing is the credits. So we are out of time, my friend. You ready to?
Time. Wow.
Yeah, we went an hour and 10 minutes. Too long. So thanks for joining us, and please stop back by next week. We'll have another look at some wacky stuff.
Yeah.
Until then, Bye.